Hi everyone. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Heenah, and I'm finally at this stage in my Toastmasters journey where I'm doing a speech about researching a topic that I'm interested in, but still kind of unfamiliar about, and presenting what I found to you. So one thing that I'm really interested in myself is the idea of personalities and how our personalities are formed. And recently, I was listening to this podcast. It's called Stuff You Should Know. It's quite famous, maybe some of you have heard of it. And there was an episode on birth orders and basically how they can affect your personalities and if it's true or not, or if it's a whole load of hokum. But this was super interesting for me. So birth order effect, for those of you who don't know what it is basically a concept that explains how where you're born in the position of your family relative to your siblings can affect your personality and how you express yourself as you're older, when you get older. And it's a term that was coined by this psychologist called Alfred Adler, who was living and working in the 1800s, and he was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud. So yes, it's that kind of realm of psychology, like a little bit maybe pop psychology, I suppose you could call it. A little bit hard to objectively do scientific studies about it, and maybe a little bit on the speculative side. But for me, I found this interesting anyway, because maybe I just am the kind of person who likes creative explanations for the way things are, the way things turn out. So I just wanted to share some of the facts that I found out just doing some research into this, because I delved into it a little bit more, did some web-based research, and maybe just have some fun and learn a bit about you guys as well. So to start off with, let's just get straight into talking about birth orders. And to start off, we'll talk about the firstborn child. So does anyone want to raise their hands if they were the firstborn child in their family? Okay, so a few of us, yeah, and that's me too as well. So what does the birth order effect have to say about the firstborn? Basically, lucky you, because for an amount of time at least, you got all of your parents' undivided attention and resources to yourself. For a time, at least, until younger siblings come along. So your parents were most likely to have been laser focused on nurturing you and really keen to get it right because you were their first kid. So they probably spent more time invested in reading to you, playing with you, caring about your schoolwork and how all that's going. Until you get younger siblings, and then you start to share in some of that responsibility for caring for them as well. So what does this lead to as an adult? As an adult, you are more conscientious, structured, reliable, typically a high achiever, and likely to take leadership positions, according to this birth order effect theory. Negative things, you might have suffered from having great crushing expectations put on top of you from all the responsibilities that you had. Maybe you're a little perfectionistic, maybe a little bit on the controlling side. So that's for the firstborn. Are there any only children here? Anyone's an only child? Victor?
Yep.
Oh, and myself. Okay, cool, interesting. So, as an only child, what this theory says is that basically you're like a firstborn, but on steroids, kind of. So high achiever, again, perfectionistic, with great expectations put on you, but you're likely to be quite mature because you spent a lot of time hanging around with adults most of the time. And you're used to having all of your parents' time, affection, money, basically their resources on you, and you're not used to having to share it, supposedly, with other people. And maybe also you're slightly more used to having a bit more special attention put on you compared to other people who have siblings, according to this theory. So, are there any people here who are the youngest or the last born? Okay, quite a few actually, like nearly half the group. That's interesting. So as the last born, you were considered to be the cute one or the baby, and you were accordingly treated as such, maybe. Your parents subconsciously might have held you back a bit from stopping from becoming the baby so they could keep indulging you with that kind of attention. And also, as parents have more children, more kids come along, maybe their parenting style becomes a bit more relaxed and they don't have to worry about it so much after a few kids have come along. So maybe you're more fun-loving, free-spirited, perhaps a bit spoiled and attention-seeking. I don't know. There's also a book by this psychologist who was called Frank J. Soloway that I came across, and he said in it that the younger siblings, last-born children, are more prone to be in line with like revolutionary thinking and engage in revolutionary ideas, compared to like the eldest who might be more likely to stick to the status quo. And finally, the middle child. Is anyone here a middle child? Okay, yeah, David, cool. So as the middle child, you're sort of caught in between. You were never the eldest. You were once a baby, but then suddenly this new, younger, cuter baby came along and usurped your position in the family. So how could you compete? Maybe you felt invisible as a child, stuck in the middle. Maybe you had to compete for your parents' attention and time and resources. Maybe, basically, in other words, you suffered from the dreaded middle child syndrome, which is not a real clinical diagnosis, by the way, but a lot of people will tell you it's still a real thing. So, however, as you get older, though, maybe this means that you've ended up being more resilient, independent, and diplomatic. And typically, you're more likely to have a larger circle of friends than your other siblings. So, I'm going to do for time. Okay, I've got a couple of little extra facts. Like, there's so much more I could say about this, but those are the main birth order positions. And I just wanted to say, okay, so number one, psychologists agree that when there's a 5-year gap between siblings, that the whole birth order thing resets itself again. So you've got like a bunch of 2 children maybe, then a 10-year gap, then another 2 children. It's basically like it resets. They have the firstborn, youngest-born dynamic. 2, cultural and parental attitudes matter. So for example, if you've had 4 girls, and then you have 1 boy, if he's the first of the boy, the first son, he might be treated as an eldest in a way. And twins. I don't know if anyone here is a twin or not. No, quite rare. Apparently they create their own sort of birth order unit amongst themselves. So one of them will act a bit more like the eldest, and one of them will act a bit more like the youngest amongst themselves. But to conclude, so yes, even though this is kind of in the pop psychology realm, I don't know if this resonates with anyone a little bit. Maybe at this time of the year when you're gathering around for Christmas with your family, does this dynamic look a bit familiar when you're with your siblings or maybe your children? Or maybe you think, nah, this isn't me at all. Well, for me, like I've noticed with some people, I can totally see this model fitting with them, and other people it just doesn't fit at all. But anyway, for me, it's just a fun way to think about personality and how it forms. And at the end of the day, like personality is this big pie that's made up of so many different ingredients. And if this is legit, this whole birth order theory, then it's just a small part of your personality. So I'd like to end just maybe by, instead of asking the question, birth order, what does it say about you, maybe flipping that and asking instead, birth order, what does it not say about you? Because in my opinion, I think that's quite a lot. Thank you. And anyone wants, sorry.